Hello, I'm CJ Wellerman, and in this episode we reveal the truth about Israel and its relationship to the September 11 attacks. The evidence is damning. But first, please remember to like and subscribe to our show. Now let's get into it. Regular viewers know that our program does not engage in conspiracy theories because we are dedicated to serious journalism that exposes injustices in the Muslim world. Spreading conspiracies will only undermine that mission. Therefore, any discussion about 9/11 must begin with the indisputable fact that 9/11 was not an inside job. It was carried out by Al-Qaeda, which we know to be true because bin Laden said so in his own words in a televised interview with Al Jazeera in 2004, 3 years after he initially denied it. He praised the attackers as a blessed group of Muslims and recited poetry on their behalf.
خرجوا من أرض الحجاز من أرض الإيمان من غامد وزهران ومن بني شهر ومن حرب ومن نجد نرجو الله أن يتقبل الجميع والذين خرجوا من مكة المكرمة سالم ونواف الحازمي وخالد المحضار أو الذين خرجوا من المدينة المنورة تركوا الدنيا ونعيمها من أجل لا إله إلا الله.
So now that we have answered the question as to who carried out 9/11, let's now examine what Israel knew in advance of the attacks and why it didn't use this information to help the United States stop them. These questions start with the so-called 5 dancing Israelis, who were seen celebrating and filming a jetliner slam into the Twin Towers from atop a removalist van in New Jersey on September 11th, as reported at the time by mainstream media outlets.
It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells. The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day?
When the men were apprehended by law enforcement, they first claimed to be Israeli tourists, but later admitted to being illegally employed by a moving company called Urban Moving Systems, a company an FBI investigation determined to be a front for Israeli intelligence operating within the United States. Of the 5 arrested, at least 2 of the men were determined to have direct links to the Mossad, after their names appeared in a CIA FBI database of foreign intelligence operatives. According to the initial police report, one of the 5 told the arresting police officers, "We are Israeli, we are not your problem. Your problems are our problems. The Palestinians are the problem." End quote. We'll circle back to this in a moment, but the FBI was so sure that the 5 Israelis had information about the 9/11 attacks, or at least knew of the attacks in advance, that it held them for 5 months in solitary confinement, and subjected some of them to at least 7 polygraph tests, which is an unusually high number according to experts. A famous American journalist who reviewed the FBI investigation and interviewed higher-ranking FBI officials said in March 2002 that the law enforcement agency believed it was impossible the Israelis didn't know of the attack in advance.
What about this question of advanced knowledge of what was going to happen on 9/11? How clear are investigators that some Israeli agents may have known something?
Well, it's very explosive information, obviously, and there's a great deal of evidence that they say they have collected, none of it necessarily conclusive. It's more when they put it all together. A bigger question, they say, is how could they not have known? Almost a direct quote, Brett.
Yeah,
Ultimately, the Israelis were released from detention after the Bush administration intervened, with the FBI report stating, Israeli and US government officials worked out a deal, with the 5 Israelis taken out of jail, put on a plane and deported back home. Evidence that higher-ups in the administration intervened is the fact that the then Attorney General, John Ashcroft, personally signed off on the detainees released. Ashcroft was not only a devout Christian Zionist, But also, without coincidence, the first client he obtained as a government lobbyist in 2005 was the State of Israel. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Upon their return to Israel, the 5 dancing Israelis told an Israeli television network that they were in New York on September 11th to document the attack on the Twin Towers. The key words being document the attack, because how can you document an attack or incident that you have no advance warning of?
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Now that we, along with the FBI, have determined Israeli intelligence did indeed have advance warning of the September 11 attacks, the question is, why didn't they pass on this information to the United States to prevent the mass murder of 3,000 American citizens on US soil? Well, let's start with Omer Mameri, one of the arrested Israeli intelligence officials, who explained to the FBI why he viewed the 9/11 attacks in a positive light. He said, "Israel now has hope that the world will now understand us. Americans are naive, and America is easy to get inside. There are not a lot of checks in America, and now America will be tougher about who gets into their country." End quote. On the surface, this is certainly an odd way to equivocate the deaths of 3,000 Americans with something positive. But it makes sense from a motive point of view when you consider what Netanyahu told an Israeli newspaper. He said, "We are benefiting from the attack on the Twin Towers and Pentagon and subsequent war in Iraq because it has swung American public support in our favor." End quote.
במיוחד היום עם אמריקה, אני יודע מה זה אמריקה. אמריקה זה לא שאפשר להזיז אותו בקלות, להזיז לכיוון הנכון. לא יכולים.
אם אנחנו עושים איזה משהו, אז הם...
יש כזה, אז נניח שהם אומרים משהו. 80% מהאמריקאים תומכים בה.
Israel's motive in withholding intelligence regarding the September 11 attacks was also made obvious in 2002, when Israel began aggressively pressuring the United States to invade Iraq, an Arab country that had absolutely zero involvement with 9/11.
Once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. Next thing you'll see is a nuclear bomb in the World Trade Center. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. I think the choice of Iraq is a good choice. It's the right choice.
As you can see, there's absolutely zero doubt Israel had prior knowledge of the largest terrorist attack to hit the United States, and it did nothing to alert its #1 ally of its coming catastrophe. The question now is, why don't Americans care? And the answer to that question is simple. Not enough Americans know, because this information has been suppressed and long forgotten by the mainstream media outlets. I'm certain that if every American knew Israel could have prevented 3,000 American casualties but chose not to, which resulted in the $10 trillion war on terror that cost another 10,000 American lives, then every US citizen would take to the streets with pitchforks in demanding an immediate end to their hard-earned tax dollars being funneled to the Zionist state.
Some evil is just, it can't be explained.
Are these people happy? Are they joyous now? Are they celebrating?
Oh, absolutely. They're celebrating.
God.
There's one report, this has not been confirmed, but there's several reports that there was a cell, one of these cells across the Hudson River, and they got on this is the report. I emphasize, I don't know this for a fact, but there's several witnesses who say this happened. They got on the roof of the building to look across. They knew what was going to happen. Yeah. They were waiting for it to happen, and when it happened, they celebrated. They jumped for joy.
This is why you must support independent media. This is why we urge you to support our program by becoming a member at patreon.com/CJWerleman. We can't produce, sustain and grow the show without your help, and we offer exclusive benefits to those who do. But for now, good night, good morning, wherever you are, and stay blessed.